Hey there, friends and neighbors. This is Karen Carper Fredette, and I'm speaking to you from Southern Appalachians, Spring Creek, North Carolina. And I'd like to share a short story with you that I've written. It's entitled Troublesome Gap. And I will explain about these short stories. They are based on real facts, although I have turned them into fiction. Troublesome Gap exists definitely here in Spring Creek. And this is a story based on things that I have experienced or learned about. Troublesome Gap by Karen Carper Fredette. Alina fought panic as her Cherokee was forced off the road into a ditch by a logging truck, which crossed both lanes as it rounded a sharp curve. While trying to brake in the rocky soil, Alina glanced down the slope to a creek bed far below and began to quiver. Didn't anyone believe in guardrails around here? After a few minutes to recover, Alina slowly navigated the blind curve herself and was relieved to see the road flattened and ran arrow straight for nearly a mile. Her rusty driving skills had been sorely tested after she had reached these mountains of western North Carolina. Now, with no other vehicles in sight, she took her eyes off the road so she could see her scribbled directions. This must be the flats, where she would find Smoky Realty, owner Vono Lesk. Alina passed an abandoned general feed store, some tobacco fields starting to turn yellow, and a weathered barn. She also noted a cluster of single-wides attended by decrepit vehicles. The poverty of the area began to impress itself upon her. "Are you sure?" her inner voice queried again. Squinting through her sunglasses, Alina spotted a sign dangling from one hook just where the road began to curve again. Her goal. Two enormous oaks sheltered a stone-faced house where several trucks of various vintage clustered, tagged like partisans for the Confederacy. When her Jeep, with its Yankee State license, crunched onto the berm, heads swiveled in her direction, and 5 dogs leapt up, baying in chorus. Intimidated more by the silent surveillance of the grizzled men than by their yapping dogs, Alina assessed the scene in her rearview mirror before cutting her engine. One of the men, lean in jeans and plaid flannel shirt, detached himself from the group and ambled toward the car. Despite herself, Alina checked his hip for a holster. Of course, there was none. "Get over that, woman," she silently chided herself. "Looking for something, ma'am?" Alina let the motor die. Yes, I'm looking for Smoky Realty. I have an appointment with Vono Lusk." Nerves betrayed her, turning her sentence into a weak question. Without answering, the man merely tilted his chin toward the faded sign and rolled his eyes toward his buddies under the trees. Alina registered the unspoken slur on her mental capacity, and anger surged through her. Swinging wide the car door, she stepped out, her 5 feet 10 inches bringing her nearly eye level with this overbearing male. "Never show them you're afraid," her inner monitor murmured. "I'm looking for Mr. Lesk," she repeated firmly. "So you said, ma'am. Well, you're looking at him." "And you're looking at Alina McCroy, the woman who called you from Bristol yesterday about seeing some properties," she retorted. Lesk's eyes traveled over her slender frame, noting a sweatshirt, new, and jeans, still creased, the city white sneakers. When he glanced briefly at her glossy shoulder bag, Alina clutched it more firmly to her side. Flushing under this appraisal, Alina worried how much was revealed to the realtor's keen glance. Where was that legendary hospitality in the South she had counted on? Then she remembered what a former roommate had told her. Locust County was mountain, and a different breed of folk lived there. Her friend had insisted on the distinction, but until now it hadn't registered as need to know with Alina. Her surge of irritation had pinked her cheeks, flushing away their pallor. She held her head high, though that only seemed to amuse this realtor in some obscure way. Hoping he couldn't guess how much keeping up this front cost her, Alina jangled her keys impatiently. The lanky man waved toward the interested crowd. "Lowell, Harold, Isa, I'll be about some business now. Meet you'ns later at Woodard's place." Nodding, the men hupped their dogs into their trucks and drove off in clouds of dust. Feeling only slightly less threatened, Alina followed the realtor, now striding toward a 2-story garage where an outside staircase led up to a door labeled "Office." Once inside, Alina found herself in a surprisingly modern space. A computer hummed on one desk, piles of brochures were stacked about, and a bulletin board was covered with house and land for sale notices. Lesk leaned over another desk, rummaging through slips of paper. Here it is. You called from Virginia, saying you was interested in putting down on a house around here, but didn't want no land with it. How'd you hear of Locust County? What you looking for? A summer place? Alina flinched, noting his eyes narrowing in disapproval. Puzzled, she ignored the first question and asserted, "No, I'm planning to live here year-round. I'm just not into farming, nor," she added, surprised by her own candor, "nor wanting to pay taxes on land I don't need." With a glimmer of respect, Lesk waved her to a chair. "Well then, let's start from the ground up here. How much money we looking at?" Taken aback, Alina realized she'd better risk the truth of her situation up front. I can't do more than 60 or 70,000, she admitted, and scanned the realtor's face for fading interest. When his attention didn't seem to waver, she plunged on. But I don't want a single wide or a fixer-upper, I guess you call them. Yum, muttered Lesk. That don't give us much to look at. Despite his pessimistic response, Alina's heart leapt. That there was anything to see encouraged her. She hurried on, outlining her dream, despite the voices warning her not to tip her hand. I'm looking for a homey place, anything fastened to the land, a place where I might sink roots, she added, and noticed a slight softening in Lesk's gaze. Nodding to himself, he tugged open a lower file drawer and brushed over the ranks of folders thoughtfully. Not a fixer-upper, only needs room for one, he mused softly, while Alina's heart clenched. How much had he already guessed? Lesk's calloused fingers passed over the files, and he glanced up. How far out or up are you willing to live? You mean, like this, ma'am. Would you consider something off a paved road? Are you looking for a place with a view? Do you want neighbors about, or do trees make you happy? Alina blinked, such options never having entered her calculations or dreams. I'd like privacy, she admitted, and a view would be great, I guess, but I don't want anything too primitive, she added, hoping this man would catch her meaning without asking more intrusive questions. She wasn't ready for them. Maybe never would be. And yes, she definitely preferred trees to neighbors. Lesk pulled out a few folders and slammed the drawer shut, muttering only half to himself. There's the Worth place up toward Troublesome Gap, the Trebled cabin along Champ Branch, or maybe the old Haggart house. Don't know if any of 'em might suit, but they're in your range, sort of. Been on the market a while, so the owners might be willing to dicker some. He cleared his throat. You got time to see 'em now? Got no pictures of these places to show you. Alina paused, alarm bells ringing. Was she being pushed? This man was only doing his job, wasn't he? It was time she stopped being so jumpy. Smoothing her sweatshirt, she tried to look interested but not too eager. This might be the day she launched her new life, the fresh beginning she'd dreamed of through long, hopeless years. Alina nodded, not willing to trust her voice. Assessing the unconscious revelations of his client, Lesk plucked some keys from the pegboard by his computer. We'll go in my Rover, he announced, and strode from the office. Alina rose to follow, disturbed by his casual assumption of her compliance. A single woman, house hunting with a man she didn't know, but what option did she have? Find a female realtor? She had no more reason to trust a woman than men after what she'd been through. Shrugging, she let curiosity override her caution and scurried down the steps with an agility that belied her 54 years. However, Alina felt nettled when Lesk made her circle his mud-splattered vehicle to climb into the passenger seat. Didn't men hold doors for women anymore? Of course not, she chided herself. A lot has changed since then. As soon as Lusk turned the key, country music blared, but he made no move to turn the radio off. Wheeling onto the pavement, he drove swiftly back down the flats till he swerved across a wooden bridge spanning a deep creek bed. Asphalt turned to gravel, which soon yielded to a rutted lane that just kept climbing. Dust, billowing in their wake, discouraged the dogs that rushed barking from houses concealed among the trees they passed. Lesk slowed only slightly as the road deteriorated, and Alina braced her feet, keeping her smile fixed in place. Finally, he flicked off the radio to explain, "We're on Bearshot Branch here, which goes up through Troublesome Gap. The place I'm showing you used to belong to the Worths. Folks built it themselves. Had some kinda strange ideas, but they lived here purty happy till he stroked and died. It's been bought and sold a few times since. The present owner wanted it for a hunting lodge, but in the end, it didn't suit." The tree-shaded road was pleasantly cool. With the radio off, Alina became aware of twittering birds and silence. An inner door, long shut, began to crack open, and she drew a deep breath, involuntarily closing her eyes. Then a front tire dropped into a deep rut, and Alina skidded across the seat, her heart thudding. Glancing over, she caught a grin flickering across Vonolesk's face. "Is this why they call it Troublesome Gap?" she gasped, sliding back against the passenger door. "Watch yourself, woman," Alina's inner voices warned. Then the rover lurched to the left and stopped in a weedy yard, facing an unpainted structure set on pilings in pleasant shade. A deep, screened porch constituted its sole charm. Lesk pulled his vehicle closer to the sagging steps, explaining that snakes often lurked in untended yards. About to step out, Alina hastily pulled her sneakers back and flushed at Lesk's dry chuckle. Did he enjoy testing potential clients? It seemed a strange strategy for making sales. Piqued again, Alina jumped out of the vehicle and joined Lesk on the porch, where he was jiggling a lock. When he pushed the door open, Alina peered over his shoulder into stuffy gloom. Nearly empty of furnishings, it was soon apparent what Lesk had meant by built themselves. Rough boards paneled the walls, and a poorly mortared fireplace appeared as her eyes adjusted. It seemed to be all one room, with cupboards and a sink in an alcove, a built-in desk beneath a wide window, and what appeared to be a permanent couch facing the hearth. She noticed steps crudely fastened to one wall, graceless, even perilous, without a railing. When Lesk nodded, Alina carefully climbed them, nearly banging her forehead on a low beam at the top. Obviously, this was only meant to be a sleeping loft. Spying two dusty windows, Alina crouched to peer through one and was surprised to see a small pavilion almost covered with a leafy vine. Kudzu? She'd have to study up on local flora. Descending, Alina tried to conceal her conflicting emotions, but Lesk caught her frown. "What was you expectin', ma'am? A chalet?" And then added softly, "Don't worry 'bout facilities. They's a composting toilet just by the back door, and a black bag shower outside that gets hot enough, leastwise in the summer. The folks what built this wanted to live off the grid, so the only electric comes from a generator that runs when there's enough sunshine on them roof panels you nearly hit. Usually it's enough to bring up water from a nice well. Problem is, they also wanted trees round the place to cool it in the summer. That Worth couple might have been educated, but didn't seem overmuch blessed with common sense." Smiling uncertainly, Alina stepped back onto the porch, where she suddenly caught her breath. There were views, and then there were views. If she wondered what might have kept folks living up here in such Spartan conditions, she had her answer. Her soul expanded as she looked over blue ridges, rolling lazily, hazily into the distance. No sound reached her but the rushing of a nearby creek. A bold branch, the ads would probably call it. Intrigued despite herself, Alina walked around outside, noting a fragrant bush planted near the back door and a bench circling the trunk of an ancient apple tree, now gone to suckers. She recognized some honeysuckle, and a few feet away, a towering shrub, probably laurel. Not all the wild things around here are rooted to the ground, her voices reminded her. She swept the ground hastily for snakes, but her eyes kept wandering back to the view. No trees blocked it, because the mountainside dropped off so sharply. Staring across the valley, Alina felt her very eyeballs expanding. But back into the cabin, she squinted as her heart began to pound. Despite some charming touches, something about the place disturbed her. With only 3 windows downstairs, it felt closed in, cramped, and before she could help herself, Alina rushed back out to the wide porch. Could she bear to begin her new life in such a small, dark space? Even if she spent most of her days on this spacious porch, as the builders probably had, this would never do, would it? Alina tried to calm her racing pulse. When Vono strode out behind her, Alina turned with careful control. "What's the asking price for this?" she inquired, hoping she projected only casual interest. "What would you give for it, Miss McCroy?" he asked in return. Alina didn't like being toyed with and said sharply, "Nothing. I'm looking for something larger, a place with lots of light." "Don't have much like that hereabouts, leastwise not in your price range," he replied just as bluntly. A sudden rage boiled up in Alina. This testy mountain man was not going to push her into doing something she might regret, something that would betray the person she was struggling so fiercely to liberate. "Give me the asking price, and I'll think about it," she demanded, and swirled down the steps. Two could play at this. But a second turn around the grassy yard became a game of what if? What if the windows were enlarged? What if she could get some kitchen appliances on the cheap? What if she put up curtains and laid some pillows around? Homey touches she'd sorely missed in past years. Lesk was perched on the front steps, staring out across the mountainscape as Alina came around from inspecting the composting toilet and outdoor shower. When he didn't say anything, Alina accepted his unspoken invitation and joined him, taking one step above him. The view soothed her soul, and whether or not she was being a fool to buy the first place she saw, Alina knew this place could be home to her. "So tell me, what's the asking price?" Turning to look up at her, Lesk repeated, "What'll you give for it?" "Oh, so it's up to me?" Alina mused aloud. "This place needs a lot of things, not to mention a lot of work, if someone wanted to live here year-round. Given what I've seen, I might offer 40,000. Make it 50 and it's a deal." 45, Alina countered, almost dizzy at the prospect of getting such a sight for so little. Lesk glanced up at her and pronounced, "Done." Just as Alina was about to grin in jubilation, he laid his hand on her knee. "When did you get out of the joint?" "What?" she began, but her bluster deserted her. "How'd you guess?" "I know the signs. Been there myself," he admitted. "What were you in for?" Staring out across the valley, Alina muttered, "Murder." "Yeah? Shot my husband 9 times. Must have been a son of a bitch." "That he was, and more." "If this story gets around hereabouts, you'll sure get a lot of respect. Not likely anyone'll bother you over much. Alina propped her elbows on her knees and caught a glim in Vono's eye. She turned toward the view again, and a broad smile spread across her face, the first in a long, long time. And that's the story I wanted to share with you.